Roll call.
Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Here. Please stand for the pledge, and I'll provide the opening remarks. I'll just take this moment to recognize two holidays we have this week. One, of course, was yesterday, which was Earth Day. I want to recognize that in the city of Omaha as well. And in fact, the City Council has done a proclamation recognizing that for the Earth Day festivities that'll take place this Saturday in Elmwood Park. So if you're out and about, please participate in that. It goes from 11 to 6 o'clock that day. And then secondly, Arbor Day, a uniquely Nebraska holiday. As you may recall the history of that with J. Sterling Morton, which began in 1872. Something we celebrate in, of course, our state and throughout the country. And the city will do that this week by planting trees in a number of our different parks. So I encourage others to follow that example as well. Thank you.
An affidavit of publication is on file for the pre-council and city council meeting, and a current copy of the Open Meeting Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of legislative chambers.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the Omaha City Council. We appreciate having you here. We look forward to your testimony on our many items. I would encourage you to turn your cell phones off or at least to vibrate. If you have any difficulty hearing during our proceedings today, please let the city clerk know. We do have listening devices available for anyone who may need them.
Item 6, to consider a Class C liquor license for Luke's Corner located at 6002 South 42nd Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 6 is today. Proponents, please.
Hello,
Hi. Want to give your name and address?
Luke Samstead, 6002 South 42nd Street, Omaha, Nebraska 68107.
Thank you. Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Motion to approve. Second.
There's a motion to approve and a second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Item 7, to consider a Class C liquor license for Hoodlum Hoagies and Pizza located at 707 South 24th Street.
Public hearing and vote on number 7 is today. Proponents, please.
Hello,
Give your name and address.
Mariah Pison at 6606 Wirt Street, Omaha, Nebraska 68104.
Okay, just here to answer questions, right?
What's that?
Just here to answer questions if there are any?
Sure.
Yeah? Okay, thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Bagley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Good afternoon. Thanks for coming down today.
Sure.
I left you a message on Sunday. I didn't get a chance to chat with you, but I just tell me about what Hoodlum Hoagies and Pizza, what that's going to entail and what your hours of operation are going to look like.
Our daily operations are probably going to be about 9 to 9. And it's very similar to Pepper Jack's, but we're just going to add pizza. So it's going to be hoagies, something quick. You can select your toppings. We have options between steak, chicken, and vegetarian. Yeah, so we'll probably be closed around 9 o'clock.
Okay, are you going to be open Monday through Sunday?
Yes.
Okay, so I went to Pepper Jack's yesterday downtown, so once you're open, I'll look forward to maybe taking Fesserson or one of my colleagues up there for lunch and enjoying a good sandwich. And I wish you the best of luck, and I'll be glad to make a motion to support this today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There's a motion to approve in a second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley.
Aye.
Harding. Hug.
Yes.
Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Item 8, to consider a special designated liquor license application for the Broke Down Palace located at 8805 Maple Street for an outdoor concert on May 9th, 10th, and 11th from 6 a.m. to 2 a.m. with music ending at midnight each night.
Public hearing and vote on number 8 is today. Proponents, please.
Yeah, Ross Coley, 329 Frank Street, Council Bluffs, 51503. Just here to answer questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Council members, this is in my district, and I'm supportive of this event, which has happened several years now in a row without incident, and I know you
Yeah,
know things well by
this is
then.
our 6th year doing it, actually. We've done one now a couple times in October that we've added on. It's kind of a smaller scale, but yeah, we're looking forward to it, and feel like there's been a nice positive response in our area. We have 2 not new food vendors, but one neighbor next door that's a chicken wing restaurant called Everett's, and then a new taco place that just came in across our parking lot. So both of those people will have food available out of their locations, and so it's kind of it's not just a good opportunity for our business, but our neighboring businesses as well. So,
Thank you.
yeah.
Motion to approve.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And Mr. Harding, you,
My annual Dave Grohl reference go by.
I know. Well, and I shaved the beard a little bit, but I'm getting a lot grayer now. But yeah, I was wondering if it was going to come up today. Yeah.
and for the record, our band's about to play this venue, but it's not this SDL and not this weekend.
No, it's not this weekend, but I'm glad that you brought it up, Mr. Festerson. Yes, the Fester Tones will be playing there here in May. So check our Facebook page. Come
Nice
down and support
self-promotion, Pete.
local music.
All right. Thank you. There's a motion, a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
All right, thank you for your public service. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Item 9, a resolution to approve the final plat for Coventry Replat 17, located northwest of 204th Street and Harrison Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 9 is today. Proponents, please.
I'm Kyle Hazy with E&A Consulting Group, 10909 Mill Valley Road, representing the applicant. I'm making myself available for any questions council may have.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
There's a motion, a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 10, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for Camelot Village 2, Replat 2, with a waiver to Section 5384D lot frontage located northwest of 90th and Grand Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 10 is today. Proponents, please.
Kyle Hazy with E&A Consulting Group, 10909 Mill Valley Road, representing the applicant. I'll make myself available for any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. There's a motion, a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Item 11, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for Saddle Creek campus located southwest of Farnham Street and Saddle Creek Road. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 11 is today. Proponents, please.
Ryan Lawson with UNMC, 10423 M Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68127.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. There's a motion, a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Item 12, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for Southside Terrace 2, located northeast of 30th and W Streets. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 12 is today. Proponents, please.
Hi, Bill Lukash, Brinshore Development, 903 South 184th Avenue Circle, here to answer any questions that you might have about that. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents, please. Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Motion to approve in a second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 13, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for Iron Ridge Replat 2, located at 12805 4th Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 13 is today. Proponents, please.
Rob Woodling, Foundations Development, 1886 South 126th Street, Omaha, Nebraska. Be more than happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Move the approval.
Motion is second to approve. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 14, a resolution to approve the preliminary plat for Four Seasons Linden Estates Replat 2, located southeast of 143rd Court and Cummings Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing and vote on number 14 is today. Proponents, please.
Hi, Jeff Anderson with McNeil Company Builders, 4666 South 132nd Street. Just here for any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Move the approval.
Motion is second to approve. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thanks.
One public hearing can be held for items 15 through 18 for MUD Acres 2, located northeast of Blair High Road and Potter Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 15, an ordinance to rezone this property from DR District to GI District. Item 16, a resolution to approve the final plat. Item 17, a resolution to approve a large project special use permit to allow maintenance and service facilities over 10 acres in size in the GI District. Item 18, a resolution to approve the subdivision agreement.
Public hearings and votes on items 15 through 18 are today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, council members. Jim Bouger, 10250 Regency Circle, here on behalf of the applicant, Metropolitan Utilities District. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Move the approval.
Motion is second to approve. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. One public hearing, or items 19 and 20 can be considered together for property located at 807 South 50th Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. Item 19, an ordinance to rezone this property from R435 District and GC District to TOD 2 MX District. Item 20, an ordinance to approve a PUR overlay district.
Public hearing and vote on items 19 and 20 are today. Proponents, please.
Hello, Randy Kushak with Lamper Anderson, 14710 West Dodge Road, here on behalf of the applicant, here to answer any questions you may have today.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Please come down.
Hi, Chris Shanahan, 811 South 50th Street. Our property and house is right next to the proposed planning, and we're virtually right next door. So I'm not quite sure how this would affect our, our house and what would have to happen there, but it's right next door, and I'm just kind of wondering what the plans are for people living within 300 feet or close, and how that's going to affect us.
Okay. I think we can ask that question here in a minute. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearing is closed. Mr. Bigley.
Thanks, Mr. President. Ray, can you come back up? Is it Ray? I'm sorry, I didn't hear your name.
Randy.
Randy, I'm sorry. Randy, can you, Mr. Shanahan asked a question. His house is just to the south of the proposed site. Can you answer that question for him, please?
Yeah, so our site is separated from his property by a vacated alley. That vacated alley has been taken up by half of the property on each side, so that's 16 feet that old alley width was. Our property will be developed in a way such that our driveway is towards the south side of our property. We will be maintaining a 10-foot buffer with a retaining wall set back under our property, 8 feet off of the property line, and then screening trees that would be mature height of 25 feet max underneath the OPPD power lines that run through that old alley to screen our property from the gentleman's property there. And so we would be sitting up above a little bit, but we would hope that there'll be no impact there. Our construction and our plans have set forth keeping a distance from that property and keeping all of our improvements on our side here. So,
In respect to the sensitivity of neighbors with any project, would you mind exchanging and give a card to Mr. Shanahan? So I know when a project happens, people have questions if things pop up during the process. Are you willing on behalf of Mr. Spellman to give Mr. Shanahan a direct contact if they got questions during the project?
absolutely.
Okay, Mr. Shanahan, do you want to pop back up, please? Did that answer your question that you had in respect to the development?
I mean, I bet that's as much as what I probably get here. I mean, I probably have questions later. I mean, it seems to us that it's going to be right next door, and how is that going? You know, there's going to be a lot of people living there, and it's going to change a lot of things along the whole strip. It's going to be it's right next door. So I'm concerned about living next to an apartment building on a busy street with not much parking. I'm not sure where the parking access is going to be, where they're going to park. It's going to be a lot more congested. So I do have a lot of questions and concerns how we're going to be able to live a normal life next to this building. So I don't know if this is the right place to do that or talk with them. Or
That's okay. And Randy, if you want to pop back up in respect to the parking and the access to where the parking will be for the apartments.
Randy Kushak with Lamper Anderson. Once again, I'm more than happy to meet after this meeting and discuss through further details. The parking for this project, we're proposing 3 on-street parking stalls to be constructed on 50th Street, north of the property line, north of our driveway entrance. The majority of the parking for the project will be under the building itself and would be located inside. That will be fully enclosed parking for the project itself. The driveway location that we're proposing is towards that south side. That lines up with an existing curb cut that is utilized for the now out of business laundromat that was located there. So it will be matching pretty closely to existing conditions and trying to keep driveway access off of Leavenworth Street, which is a safety concern. So.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. And again, please give Mr. Shanahan your information, and he can reach out to me anytime there's questions during this project going forward. Thanks. I'll make a motion to support this. Thanks.
Second. Thank you. There's a motion and a second. Ms. Melton.
Thank you. And Randy, just because we're talking about this, if you could take the little Elmo wand, I assume you brought some pictures because it may be helpful to show the neighbors actually what you're building and what it's going to look like. You have the PUR overlay, but it might be better just to kind of, we have access to it sitting here, and it was attached to our agenda, but I think everybody should be able to see that. So you're showing the parking and that's underneath?
Yeah, so our primary driveway entrance is right here that would come along. The property line is set 10 feet back from that. You can see this dark line is a retaining wall as our parking will sit up. The grade of 50th Street comes down pretty severely as we go to the south. That entrance to the parking garage will be right here. Majority of the parking will be all internal to the building. Those additional on-street parking stalls on 50th Street will be constructed right here. The streetscape will be upgraded to urban design standards with tree plantings in those nodes to green that up a little bit. And then same with the concrete will come out along Leavenworth Street to provide plantings along that location too.
And then do you have any pictures of what the building is actually going to look like so that the neighbors could see?
So these are black and white images of those elevations. So what we're looking at in this location is the front along Leavenworth Street, if we were looking straight at the project. This view right here is towards the back of the building, which would be the view from your property. So essentially you'll have the full height of the building on each side. The building will be set back in the middle where there'll be an amenity courtyard up on top of the garage. And the as far as building materials, those will all be compliant with the urban design code for TOD zoning. And then that retaining wall you can kind of see will go along there. That is proposed to be a cast in place wall with screening and plantings in front of it to make that green in front of that, to break that up some.
And then these are market rate apartments?
Yes.
And how many bedrooms?
53 units overall. The unit mix is 8 efficiency, 28 one bedroom, and 17 two bedroom.
Okay, and do you know what your price point is gonna be, kind of in between?
Just market rate is all I know.
You're just
on
gonna
that.
do market rate,
Yeah.
okay. And then are you gonna, I think you mentioned, which it doesn't show here, are you gonna be planting trees along the outside?
Yes, we will. The TOD zoning code requires a landscaped buffer and screening element along the south property line adjacent to the residential use. One of our waivers is in regard to that. We intend to put the same amount as what the zoning requires. We just have an OPPD overhead line. The code requires 40 feet overstory trees. We can't do that and meet OPPD's requirements to not have trees into the lines.
Okay, but you're gonna plan to put that, so for the neighbors, the residential neighbors, you're going to add
Yeah, we'll be screening.
landscaping?
Yep,
and
that
screening?
landscaping land
Okay.
between the project.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Randy. I had a few questions for the resident next door.
Just keep this up. Oh, for me, sorry. Sorry.
Hi, how are you today?
So far, so good.
All right, and what's your name?
Chris Shanahan, 811 South 50th Street.
All right, Chris, I have a couple of questions. You stated earlier that you had questions regarding what's going to happen next door to you. My question to you today is, how did you find out about this project?
We got letters in the mail.
So you did get letters in the mail from city planning and perhaps the developer?
Yes.
Okay, and so did you try to reach out to either one of them to kind of get some more information?
I did call the city office, the number that we had on the last letter, and I didn't leave a message, but I called 3 times and nobody answered, so I figured I'd wait till the meeting to get this, because we got the letter April 9th, was the letter stating about this meeting right here. And so before that, we had a letter stating that there was going to be a meeting, but my dad was, he had pneumonia, and he was in the hospital. He's been in the hospital in and out of assisted living for the last 4 months, since late December. So I've been very, very busy with him, and I haven't had a chance to really do anything. And he literally, we didn't really have time. He's barely gotten better to actually walk here. Otherwise, he'd have a wheelchair and it'd be pretty tough. So we were lucky to make it. So I haven't had a time to call. I know our biggest concern is this. So we're right on the corner. Where their building is right on 50th and Leavenworth, and we are right next to them. And there's about, like I said, about a 15-foot alley in between. So our property line is half the alley, and so is theirs. I mean, is it 3 stories, or how tall is it going to be?
It's 4 stories over top of a parking garage, so 5 total.
Okay, that's going to be a huge building right next to ours. So, I mean, we won't be able to see Leavenworth. We have, there's an alley there. There's other places around us. I'm not sure how far it extends down, but there's a strip mall down there and everything. But there's a huge cliff where I'm sure they're probably going to have their retaining wall. So we're living next door without much of a buffer, any kind of a space, any grass or anything like that. I mean, I don't know. The street, we are literally 100 feet from the street, maybe, from Leavenworth to our house. It's about maybe 100, 110 feet. I'm not sure exactly. I don't know how they're going to fit a whole apartment building between there without any disruption. So you got wires, you got power lines, you got I haven't seen what they're going to plan on, and I'm not an engineer or anything like that. So it's just a major concern, and I can't see how we can have a possible family there if that building's there with. Well, we're planning on having something like that there. The laundromat's been abandoned, and we actually used that laundromat in the past, and it's been non-active and for several years, and that's been fine. So it's going to be a whole new change.
Just out of curiosity, do you have a neighborhood association nearby?
Nope. We're kind of we don't have we're old school, 50th Street. I mean, we have straight streets like this. We're not in Millard where you have all this stuff right here. We're on 50th Leavenworth, straight street. You got Gerber's Bakeries up the street, and a lot of businesses along that street. And there's a store across the street, an antique store. And across there's actually a daycare. And so, at least there was. I think there's a daycare there. And so, I mean, it's just going to be really busy and cramped because that is a major thoroughway for the rush hour. I mean, there's cars, for a period of time. It gets pretty crowded, and that's going to make it worse. And Leavenworth itself is very crowded as well. So just trying to do what I can. I don't know if I can do anything, but I prefer not to have that built. But
yeah, it's unfortunate that you didn't get a chance to respond and ask questions before now.
Well, that's life, I guess. But I'd like to at least make my voice heard and voice our opinion on the matter if there's anything we can do. That's what the democracy's all about, right?
Absolutely.
All right, good.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Hey, Randy, you've heard Chris's concerns, and you already agreed to kind of network with him and work with him through some of his concerns. Just want to make sure that we actually complete that, so that we give him some level of assurance, given the fact that he will have some direct impact, to include the development, the construction schedule, those natural things that he will have to endure just for simple basis of that's a development that's coming. So if we just want to make sure that we have that communication, those lines of communication going on with him.
Yep, absolutely. I've already shared my card with Chris, and I intend to connect with him here and get his contact information so that we can share that with the general contractor if this project is to be approved when construction starts, so that they're in contact with him and make sure that he knows what's going on.
Thank you.
Okay, I say one more thing?
Yes.
So we will talk afterwards. It sounds like he wants to talk afterwards. So a big concern is the construction process. I mean, where are they going to lay all the, there's not much room there. And so I'm assuming it's going to be east, like there's a lot of parking. I don't know how much they bought, but there's a lot of parking there. They're going to have big machinery and all that. So that as well as that, and it's very close to our house. So something could, whatever. So.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Begley.
Thanks, Mr. President. And just to be clear, Ryan's not here today. I know you're here on his behalf. Months and months ago, he and I met, and it's right on the border of the Exarban Elmwood Neighborhood Association in Dundee, which is northwest across the street. I believe President Jen Bauer of the Exarban Elmwood Group did meet with Ryan. Now, if the Shanahans weren't contacted, living right behind there, Ryan's not here to answer that today, but I do know that he personally did have a meeting at my request with Jen Bauer, and as Mr. Shanahan said, that's not incorporated in any neighborhood association, but it's right across the street. And as far as the plans and the design, it's nice to see it in color so they can understand what it looks like, and I'm confident that you'll get that information. And I'll personally reach out to the Shanahans to make sure that that is done. If something got missed here as far as communication, I felt good about the process of how this worked from the beginning. And again, I apologize to the Shanahans if they weren't aware of exactly what this was going to look like. But again, with your reassurance that you were going to speak to them on behalf of Ryan, and after our meeting, I'll reach out to them as well to make sure they have, I know they know how to get a hold of me, and I'll make sure that happens. So thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you. Mr. Hardy.
Yes, I just wanted to, I'm sorry Mr. Shanahan didn't have maybe notice of it, or I should say that this was in front of the planning board. There was a chance for a public hearing. I don't know if you had notice of it. I know you had some family issues with some health, so maybe you didn't get an opportunity back in November of '23 when this was in front of planning board to review. I think there was one person that got up and spoke in opposition, and I know Mr. Spellman had reached out to, as Councilmember Begley said, to one of the neighborhood association activists in that area. I don't think there's anything formal, as you said, but I think Randy's kind of giving you the information you need today, and had you had the opportunity, maybe you would have said something back in November at the planning board. But thanks for coming down here today and asking your questions.
Yep. Thank you for answering them. I appreciate all your help.
Yep.
Thank you. There's no further lights. There was a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton. Yes. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. One public hearing can be held for items 21 and 22. Item 21, an ordinance to rescind the 508 and 1904 tax increment financing project plan. Item 22, a resolution to approve the 1904 Farnham tax increment financing redevelopment project plan located at 1904 Farnham Street in an amount up to $418,298.
One public hearing and separate votes on these items, correct? So the public hearing and votes on items 21 and 22 are today. Proponents, please.
Yeah, good afternoon, Don Seaton, Omaha City Planning. The rescission is for a project that involved 2 downtown sites. It was approved in 2021, but for a variety of reasons didn't come together. We need to have this rescinded so that the new project, item 22, can be undertaken. The replacement project, reconfigured, is a 7-story historic building. It'll be a comprehensive rehab resulting in 54 apartment units above 6,000 square feet of commercial area. The project is about $23.1 million. The developer is requesting $418,298 in TIF support. The developer is 1904 Farnham owner, managed by Neeraj Agarwal. We ask for your approval.
Thank you. Other proponents, please.
Hello, Neeraj Agarwal for the applicant, 1904 Farnham owner, and the developer, 1904 Farnham Developer LLC. I'm just here to give a brief overview. This is part of our long-term goal to bring more affordable housing to downtown and midtown. As Don mentioned, this is adaptive reuse and historic conversion of what was a underutilized and nearly vacant office building that was home to many executive office suites for many years. The goal is to repurpose it long-term into 54 affordable housing units using 9% low-income housing tax credits, which we have approved from NYFA, the state housing agency in Lincoln. We will also use state and federal historic tax credits along with TIF. The project, like Don mentioned, is roughly $24 million. The goal is to start construction ideally in the next 30 to 60 days. We're working through the financing process right now. The overall financial timeline is approximately 12 to 14 months, looking probably around 13 months to complete construction, and then open up the building for tenants to move in. Relative to the commercial space, we do have just 2 small office suites on the first floor, around 1,200 and 1,400 square feet, and we'd reopen what was formerly Manhattan's Deli as a restaurant, breakfast, lunch concept. As we know, that's been very popular with local attorneys and, of course, people at City Hall. So just here to answer any questions you have, but just want to, again, reaffirm our commitment to bringing more affordable housing downtown, as we know that's definitely needed. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. Years and years ago, I worked in that building when it was Harris Upham Investment Company. I'm against TIF in general, maybe not because it's totally bad, but largely because you folks never really explain it very well to us. I have a couple of questions that I'd like to bring up and have the developer answer for us, since you guys don't. How long has that building been vacant? And how did the previous tenants get chased out? Why did it stay vacant so long? Who paid the property tax all this time? Who's going to pay the property tax? There's not many housing homeowners in the area to raise their taxes. But maybe another question on the other side here. It says the city's participation, which kind of means me in my pocketbook. I don't quite understand how, but it says to help defray costs or whatever you want to name it, of acquisition. We're actually going to buy this building now? I haven't seen for sale signs on it or anything. Construction costs? You know, maybe part of the game is, the developers are actually real estate people. They get TIF financing to do whatever they want to do. Then they actually own and rent out the units. I've kind of wondered about that a couple of times when I've seen certain developers' names on apartment buildings that have recently been done with TIF financing. And I kind of wonder, is that cheating the taxpayers somehow? So please open it up for some discussion. I understand we can do that if you want to give some transparency for the citizens to know how this works, because we might want to do the same thing to benefit ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearings are closed. Mr. Bagel, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Mr. Agarwal, I got a quick question for you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
On the original ordinance, let's see, we voted, on the redevelopment project that was adopted in September 21st of 2021. At that time, both the 1904 and the 508 South 19th were in my district. We got rebounded a little bit, so the 1904 Farnham is now in District 2. In respect to, the 508 South 19th Street, obviously that's not going to be demoed now. Do you have any plans that are you looking to do anything there now? Because I know we're changing this, and I'm still excited about the affordable units that you're going to do at 1904 Farnham Street, but what do you have, if anything, planned for 508 South 19th Street?
Yeah, no, good question. So we're actually currently working to financially close a previous project that was approved, 18 Howard, which is roughly $40 million project. That would be at 18th and Howard, 5-story building with 120 units of commercial space. So that parking garage will be utilized for long-term for the parking solution for that site.
Okay, I don't have any questions for now. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Aguilar, my questions are for both you as well as Don. If you could come up, please. Don, during your presentation, you briefly stated that this project was not completed in 2021.
That is correct. The original approval was a two-site project that was approved, and the financing apparently just didn't completely come together. So that project's not being done. We're basically rescinding that one and starting over with a new one-building project.
Can you elaborate on why the project was not done or not completed?
That would be up to the developer and the hurdles he encountered.
Okay, that's fine. You don't have to answer that question because my next question will surely get me the answer to this question.
Very good.
What controls do we have in place to make sure that this project gets done today?
How can we assure that they're going to move forward with the project?
What controls have we put in place to make sure that since we did not complete a project in 2021, that this is not going to happen again? What controls have we, the city?
Well, you can issue a
engaged in?
building permit for an individual, but you can't force them to build what they said they were going to build. There really isn't a mechanism to enforce that. However, I will tell you that we use TIF as kind of the last piece of the capital stack. So when they come to us, they have to have all their other financing pretty much well secured.
So they have, they've presented to you the financial obligations or the ability to pay for this project. Is
We
that
have the
correct?
preliminary commitment letters from the private lenders and also approval, or the preliminary approval for the LIHTC credits. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to go a stretch a little bit further. So this has nothing to do with you, Mr. Aguilar, but I would just curiosity. Does the city often engage in allowing opportunities like this if they are not completed, that we give a opportunity again years later? Do we often do that?
I don't believe we're in a position to deny a property owner approval just because he had a different project that he was unable to fulfill. I don't think we have a mechanism or the authority to do that.
I just want to know for information.
Okay.
I want the community to know that this is how we do business. And if this happens and someone else is in the same situation, that we can be assured that we will do the same thing. Our decision process will be the same.
I can tell you our process will indeed be the same.
Okay. All right. We had Larry come up and he asked a few questions, and that was what happened with the previous tenants that were in the building.
And that I would need to have the developer address.
Okay.
I will tell you that the TIF that is generated by the additional tax revenues that are generated by the project go back into the project. It's not about raising taxes for any of the surrounding landowners. But beyond that, I'll turn it over to Neeraj. You want to talk about how the building came to be empty?
Yeah, so the question about vacating tenants. So the building was primarily consisting of month-to-month, or I think all month-to-month executive office tenants. So once we took over ownership and put together the plan for the new project, which is funded by 9% low-income housing tax credits, the old one was 4% like low-income housing tax credits. This is very different and very difficult to make happen. Then we basically gave them notice that we'd move forward with the project, and we worked with them on having them vacate at their kind of convenience. But ultimately, yeah, it was just a coordination with them as far as efforts on that, and same with the restaurant as well. So we made sure to kind of give them advance notice and work with them on vacating. But yeah, to my knowledge, all the office tenants were month to month, so we of course respected their leases and worked with them within the lease structure to make sure they could find a new place at a time that worked for them.
Thank you. And do you have any idea how long the building has been vacant?
Yeah, so we vacated it, I think, approximately late 2022, early 2023, and it was primarily just for economic purposes. I mean, just the tenants themselves had learned about, and we had informed them about the upcoming project, so they were looking at new space, and just the maintenance cost of keeping the building operational for them didn't make financial sense. So we had, at that point, coordinated with them on a vacation strategy, again, at their kind of time and leisure based on their lease structure.
Okay, and we had another question from Mr. Larry there, which was about property tax.
Oh, yeah, so we've been, as far as once we've acquired the property, we've been paying the property taxes on the property, as we typically would. So for us, we're fairly accustomed to having to pay carrying costs, so real estate taxes, insurance for projects, while we're working to get them to fruition, or at least financial closing. And then typically we would be reimbursed for carrying costs unless we invest into the project long term.
All right, and then he also asked the question, because it was very general in nature in the presentation provided by city planning, participation of the city. Can you elaborate on what participation the city will play in this new project?
I mean, to my knowledge, I think it was just relating to the TIF. The city doesn't have any long-term partnership with us relative to the residential commercial units. So to my knowledge, just the only involvement's been from the permitting aspect and the TIF approvals.
All right, and so the next few questions are questions that I have just to ensure my constituents about what we're doing here because this is in District 2, and I just want to make sure that we are covering all bases. Certainly, a $24 million project is nothing to minimize. It's a huge project, and we really appreciate the efforts and the consideration of this project being built. So our questions are not centered around not being favorable of the concept. We just need to know more information so that
absolutely.
we're all informed. With parking, will there be underground parking, or how will we address parking?
Yeah, good question. So we will be working with, and we've been in communication with local parking garages. So there's one across the street. So we've been in touch with them. And the basically overall plan would be between a mix of the future streetcar, that would be a long-term kind of parking solution with most properties on Farnham Street, mitigating the need for parking, but also coordinating with a local garage to make sure tenants have access. So that's typically the approach we take with a downtown project like this. Like underground parking, just the historic nature of it is not feasible. But for us, it's typically a combination of working with local parking kind of owners. And then I think, again, with the streetcar being something that hopefully comes to fruition in the next 2 to 3 years, that would be a long-term solution as well for parking tenants.
Okay, and then the vendors that will be coming once the building is built, do you have any idea who those vendors are, what that looks like? Do you have some vision in your mind as to what that's going to look like?
Yeah, great question. So on the, again, as the overview, we have 2 small office suites on the first floor. So I'd imagine they're going to be historically small law firms or other local businesses, just given the nature of the building being next to the courthouse. And that's historically who the prior tenants were. So they're about 1,200 to 1,400 square feet. So that would be my guess on that. Relative to actual commercial leasing efforts, we'll start those after we start construction. We always like to get a jump on it so we can ideally get fully executed leases before we complete construction. Relative to the restaurant, I know Manhattan's Deli was a staple in the community, so the goal would be bring something back that would be comparable. I mean, we're ideally trying to bring in more minority and women-owned businesses in the area. We have a building 2 blocks away, 1901 Howard, where we're doing the same thing, trying to support those groups. So that would be the ideal scenario, have a minority or women-owned business be the tenant for the restaurant, potentially the office suites as well. But the goal would be to start pushing very aggressively on leasing out those spaces once we start construction, so we can get a jump on that and make sure that commercial spaces are fully leased by the time we complete construction.
And you have any idea how much your lease might be, ballpark?
For the office suites and the restaurant space, so it's in line with the market. So kind of market downtown is $16 to $20 kind of square foot. So for the monthly rent on the office suites, they'd be around $1,800 to $2,000 a month. And on the restaurant space, which is closer to 3,500 square feet, that'll probably be around $5,500.
All right, thank you for that. And then our workforce before the project and workforce after the project. Can you tell me a little bit about what thought has been given to that?
As far as, I guess, before the project, you mean relative to, I guess, construction specifically? So with that, I mean, we're utilizing a local contractor, DOTComm Construction, which is very experienced in historic renovations like this project. So we'll be working with them to, of course, make sure we have the most qualified people. And of course, we always try to make sure, even though it's not a requirement, to include some percentage of minority and women-owned businesses in that. So that's kind of our focus long-term, being a minority developer, one of the few ones in Omaha. That's always something you try to push to do. Relative to afterwards, I mean, as far as workforce within the commercial spaces, we can't really speak to that. Those tenants aren't identified. But I would expect that the residential units, all 54, would probably be a mix of people who work downtown relatively nearby. And really that's our goal, is to make it more affordable for people who work downtown and Midtown to actually live here. Because right now you're seeing rents for market rate properties go over $2 a square foot. So $1,400 for a 700 square foot 1-bedroom. So we're trying to combat that and permit more affordable options in the downtown area.
So can you elaborate on affordable options for the apartments?
As far as the rent specifically? Yeah, so we have a mix of studios and 1-bedrooms. So the studios are 18 units, the 1-bedrooms are 36, totaling to 54. So the studios range from about $600 to $800 as far as rent. And then the one bedrooms range from 800 to high 900s on the one bedroom side, varying on size.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate your time. Don, you had a few.
If I may elaborate on a couple of his answers. We have a question on our TIF application, are the taxes current? We don't accept applications from projects that have delinquent taxes, just for the record. Also, state law requires that as a result of a TIF approval, the taxes paid on a building cannot be reduced. So the building in its current value, that tax will continue to be paid.
Copy that. Thank you.
And, yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to just thank Mr. Agarwal for taking the risk and putting this building into a position where it can be functioning and workable for housing. That's a great location. It's right on the streetcar line. It'll be a really good project to see. When these projects come to the City Council, I typically will get questions about TIF. I mean, people have a lot of misunderstandings about how TIF really works. And I don't want to take the time to go into it line by line today, but what I typically do is refer them to the City of Omaha's Planning Department website. They have a very robust website that details a lot of the information, will answer a lot of questions about how these programs work. And there's a tab, there's a page that has to do with TIF, and you can get into it as complicated as you want, or you can read the brief summary overview, which gives a pretty good explanation on exactly how TIF works and how the city can use the program to benefit development in our city, especially in our inner core. So I just want to get that out there. The City of Omaha Planning Department's website has a lot of information that's provided for anybody to study up and understand how the programs work.
Thank you. I too have a personal connection to this building. My father's law office was in this building for many, many years, so lots of fond memories there too. And we grew fond of Manhattan's restaurant there along the way as well, so I look forward to seeing it back into productive reuse. Council members, we need a motion on each of these items separately.
Motion to approve.
Number 21? Yes. There's a motion, a second to approve. Number 21, roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
And number 22. Motion, a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Item 23, a resolution to approve an amendment to the Crossroads TIF redevelopment project plan to include the new Omaha Central Public Library.
Public hearing and vote on number 23 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon. Bridget Hadley, City Planning. I just want to say thank you, Councilmember Rowe, for the plug to the TIF website. We try to drive traffic that way so that they can learn as much as they want about tax increment financing. I just want to provide a brief intro to this Crossroads project, or the amendment to the Crossroads project plan and the plan area. The Crossroads TIF redevelopment project was adopted by the City Council in February 2021, and the redevelopment agreement was finalized and passed by the City Council May of last year. This amendment is to the redevelopment, or is to redevelop approximately 40 to 42 acres, an acre site, which includes the former Crossroads Mall, which you can see in this on the screen outlined in blue right here. The amendment contemplates an expansion of the plan area to include the new public library site at the southwest corner of 72nd and Dodge, which you also see right here. It includes or contemplates Woodbury Corporation to become the project ownership or be included in the partner project ownership, and the city ownership and management of the parking systems and facilities. The larger plan area will have two separate projects. The reimagined Crossroads redevelopment, which again you see here, and the new public library, which again you see here. Each project will have its own separate funding sources. The addition of the library to the plan area, the enlarged plan area, enables the city to issue redevelopment bonds. This Crossroads mixed-use redevelopment still proposes the same scope of work: residential, entertainment, hotel, office, retail, and parking elements. The project is still compliant with the master plan and the community development law. And a revised plan will be conducted, and then you will see this plan again before you soon. The amendment involves a decrease in the proposed office square footage, a slight decrease in the proposed entertainment square footage, and increases in the retail component by about 141,000 square feet of space, and the residential component by about 254 units, comprised of condos, multifamily, and senior living. The amendment proposes an increase in the TIF loan by just over $22 million. That's from $79,400,000, which was approved back in 2021, to now $101,700,000, which was the amount approved by the TIF committee. So it's not 26 million, which I believe I actually heard on a news clip. It's just over 22 million. There is a separate request to increase the enhanced employment area EEA occupation tax by about 1.8 million. But again, that is will be handled separately. To go further into the details of this amendment, I will turn it over to the Woodbury Corporation, Baird Home, Jennifer Taylor from the Law Department, and Marco Floriani with the Mayor's Office. And then here are a few visuals or renderings of the first couple of phases of the project. So I'll just leave these up here. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Good afternoon, Council. Marco Floriani with the Mayor's Office. Here in support of this amendment and happy to answer any questions about the redevelopment of Crossroads and the 40-acre site. As Bridget Hadley from the Planning Department described, the project has grown about 55% in capital investment planned since the first redevelopment plan for this project. With that increase in density, over 100,000 square feet of new retail, 800 residential units. With that density, the city would like to optimize and create more land use efficiencies on the site, and kind of integrating parking solutions to help with the facilitation of that residential, office, commercial, hospitality, food and beverage on the site. So I know the development team is here along with city legal department staff, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Good afternoon, President Festerson, council members. David Levy, 1700 Farnham Street, Baird Home Law Firm, here with Josh Berger, Director of Development with Woodbury for the Midwest, Walker Kennedy, Woodbury's General Counsel, and Michael Sands from my office in the back as well. I want to thank Bridget and Marco. As always, they did a great job explaining this and giving you the nuts and bolts of it. We are very happy to be here and see this exciting project hopefully take another big step forward today. With that, I will turn it over to Josh to talk a little bit about what Woodbury has planned for the site, and certainly we're happy to answer any questions that any of you might have.
Thank you, David. Josh Berger with Woodbury Corporation, 11204 Davenport here in Omaha. As Marco and Bridget and David had said, we're excited about being part of this project. What we have planned for phase one represents about a third of the development, a third of the Crossroads site, and incorporates entertainment, incorporates mixed-use retail with multifamily and retail in the center block. One of the key things that we've worked towards doing is distributing parking throughout the site to make it more accessible for the patrons that and customers and residents that come to use the site. We're a big believer in walkability. We're a big believer in density. And we think that the use of the ground and this particular location in Omaha is some of the best real estate that Nebraska has to offer. And so we're very happy to be part of the project and happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none. Okay. Are you a proponent, Donnie?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
I take this opportunity. Donnie R. Johnson, the Johnson Equestrian Foundation, and North Omaha Concerned Citizen Foundation. To make a long story short, the State Department, while I'm here, I'll tell you that, they wanted you folks to call them, to contact them about those consulate downtown. Anyway, to make another long story short, to show how these folks are increasing, which agreements can go bad. I was in Nigeria, right? Wait. I understand.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm showing how this increase, they're asking for an increase of, 22 million? And how things, and I've been watching this whole project. It's a wonderful project. Anyway, make it so you understand, Mr. Fredson and Mr. Cake, a hug. When I was in Nigeria negotiating all this oil and all these propanes, the Enron sold and left. And so changes do come. But I think they're doing a wonderful job. So while I was in Nigeria and on my way back.
It's got to be about Crossroads down,
yeah,
okay?
But I think this project is wonderful. I think Ms. Hadley has done a wonderful job. She's always has. And Mr. Ken Johnson says she's a wonderful person. I'm just making sure that you folks keep in mind when those police stations down there turn those councilors over to us, those buildings.
Any other proponents that want to speak today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Hello, Joshua Gear, 631 South 69th Street. If you'll allow me, I want to put up a photo, again, just to remind everyone of what it looks like. Apologize, it's on my iPad, but this is it. This is the dirt field that I get the privilege of driving past every single day. I want to thank all of you for taking the time and listening to me on this. I really appreciate all the work that you all have done, your predecessors have done in helping get this going. I want to really make clear, I am excited for anything to be going in at Crossroads. I am an Elwood Park resident. Looking at a dirt field for several years now is something I'm downright done with. Compounding that feeling is the fact that my neighborhood, my specific address being one of them, is part of the blighted declaration that allowed this TIF to be possible. I encourage any one of you to drive up and down 69th Street, and you will find that blighted is probably a pretty harsh term for what is a neighborhood of first-time homeowners and rental houses. I wish the best of luck to all the developers on this, but I do have a couple of questions and concerns about the push for this increase in funding. As I understand it, a big part of the finances being intended to go to demolish and replace that parking garage. Which back in 2021, when this was initially set forth with an $80 million TIF loan approval, was perfectly fine and was ready to be included within that design. And now here we are several years later, and that garage has gone from a crucial part of this process to a structure so desperately in need of repair that there is an additional $20 million needed in TIF funding, $22 million, excuse me, to build a parking garage that ultimately the city of Omaha will own. I am concerned to hear that drastic change in such a short amount of time for a property that I would have thought, as previous developers working on it would have wanted to make sure was well maintained as part of this. Unfortunately, that did not appear to be the case. That proper maintenance and warning signs weren't given does give me concern about the positivity that endless positivity that we tend to see on this project. Going back now 13 years, City Council and the citizens of Omaha have heard multiple developers stand at this podium talking of the great things that are going to come to this very spot at 72nd and Dodge. I truly hope that should this amendment be approved, that the city look at greater oversight and accountability for a project that has frankly languished for far too long. Councilman Festerman, I do want to thank you for your story. I believe it was on Channel 7 the other night. Speaking to this and requesting and looking into that accountability, because I really do believe that, we have heard projects talked earlier, many hundreds of thousands of dollars, and those go very well. This is a staggering amount of money that I truly believe deserves the oversight that you all can give it. And again, with that future TIF development, I again want to commend you. It is a great tool, as Councilman Rowe spoke of. This is a great tool to really develop and bring a broader tax base and a brighter tax base to your districts. I am, again, I'm excited for what can come here, but I really do request and urge you to consider whatever oversight can be brought to ensure that we're not looking at a dirt field for many more years to come. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents?
Larry Storer, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha 68132. Ditto to some of the questions I already asked on a previous item. But, you know, I drive that area quite often, and I don't remember, has it been 7 years it's been vacant? Nothing done on it for how many years? No equipment on it for how many years? Now all of a sudden we're incorporating the library. I do have a college degree and I do read a lot, but I don't comprehend something. How and why all of a sudden is the library, which is on the other side of Dodge Street, incorporated into this? You know, I'm just saying from a transparency standpoint that citizens besides me might be rather confused. Like, it seems like you're pulling the wool over our eyes on something. I hope I'm wrong, but didn't costs of construction and everything go up a lot during all this time? Were there a lot of equipment that sat idle all this time? I know the sign out there on Dodge Street says one of them is Lockwood Development. The other one is another development. Are they also real estate companies? Will they be the ones renting out the space? And how come all of a sudden the retail spaces are a lot larger than they were before? What was wrong with the garage, for example? If it's not usable, why was it not tore down as a public nuisance? It could have been used for homeless shelters, renovated for new shops or whatever, maybe something different. But again, maybe it's you guys' fault because there's, and the news media, because there's no real reporting on it. You don't talk about it. And citizens like me have to force you into it somehow. Thank God that it's on the agenda so that I can. The only time I can't is when it's on the consent agenda. Oh yeah, you can pull it off the consent agenda and then we might be able to talk about it. The Open Meetings Act was just signed, a new version of it signed by the governor, by the way. I think under the Emergency Act, it might be applicable already today. But that's part of the problem. It was buried in between a lot of other stuff so that the citizens really don't know what their rights are when they come down here. So please open this up for some more answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents today?
Good afternoon, all. I'm Joe Higgins, 1110 East Camden Avenue, Omaha, Nebraska. I'm here for a group called Strong Towns Omaha Local Conversation. I apologize for not being more prepared. They asked me if I could be here today. Whoever was going to come down wasn't prepared. But I believe you should find in front of you some of the basis of what Strong Towns stands for and what they're looking to do. And I'll kind of highlight some of the stuff, and then I have more questions than I have answers, but as a concerned citizen and a concerned citizen group, we just want involvement in the process. We are pro-development.
Pertaining to Crossroads, right?
I'm talking about Crossroads, okay. Yes, sir. We're not talking about where I live. So let me just highlight some of the things in the literature before you. The mission of Strong Towns is we seek to replace America's post-war pattern of development, the suburban experiment, with a pattern of development that is financially strong and resilient. We advocate for cities of all sizes to be safe, livable, and inviting. We work to elevate local government to be the highest level of collaboration for people working together in a place, not merely the lowest level in a hierarchy of government. Their strategy is they believe in change we seek will occur, that there is a critical mass of thought and action, making the Strong Towns approach self-evident to decision makers and the people that serve. I don't know how many of you have ever heard of Strong Towns, but recently Norfolk was on the, they were in the process for being named a national strong town. And there's advocacy in a lot of governments. So I'm going to skip ahead. There's 5 points in their campaign on what they're looking for in development. Transparent local accounting, end highway expansion, safe and productive streets, incremental housing, which means the next increment of development intensity allowed by right in every neighborhood, which does not necessarily apply to this project, but it's one of their standards, and parking mandates and subsidies. So to recap.
So Joe, we need you to comment on Crossroads today, right?
Yes, this is all about Crossroads. Yes, sir. I wasn't present over the last few months, and so I haven't had the time to study what's all been going on with this project. But is my understanding, the questions that we have are concerning the fact that they say it's a walkable design, but we're doing parking subsidies, and that's one of the tenets that the Strong Towns doesn't advocate. I heard that it's compliant with our city master plan. Does it also comply with our affordable housing action plan, our climate action plan, our Vision Zero safety plan? And again, they have several different developers involved in the project have talked about walkability. So our question is about the parking and the parking subsidy, how the city's involved, what that cost would be, and that the main thing I feel and Strong Towns feels is that we're designed for people and not for cars. Although you guys know I'm a car guy, right? I made my living most of my life around cars. I love cars. We want it to be equitable housing. So there's a housing shortage, if I read the press correctly, in low-income, affordable, and workforce housing in Omaha. Are we meeting any of those standards? When we adopted the Affordable Housing Action Plan, we said affordable housing would be available in all areas of the city. Are we complying with those things? Okay. I'd like to see if we could get some answers. It'd be great.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Any other opponents today? If not, I'll close the public hearing. Josh, I might have you come back up for a few questions from my perspective, and we'll see if there are others. And feel free to, if these questions are best for someone else on the team,
sure.
Feel free to rotate around if you need to. But I appreciated our recent meetings about the project here. And Woodbury is the new partner and the one that's proposing this phase on the property. I know you don't currently own the property, but that's the idea. So I'll talk to you about a few of those things. And I do have confidence in your vision, and you showed us here today, and the history of your company and similar projects you've done in other cities. And I do appreciate that what we're looking at today actually increases density. I think that's important and does get to the walkability and livability that we want to see here, and while still maintaining the mixed use vision we think is all appropriate for Crossroads and that we worked on for a long time. I do think it's also a positive to revisit the parking plan and how that would work at the site the way you have. I don't think the parking garage at 72nd and Cass is the best and highest use for that corner. So I do appreciate the revisiting that vision too and what might happen at that part of the site. In addition to the increased retail and the increased residential part of this project that you're talking about. But I have been frustrated with the timelines at this site over a long period of time. I've been working on this for over 10 years, and although we have seen substantial change in terms of demolition and site prep, and I think about $30 million worth of investment already into the infrastructure and the sewer systems and the things you don't always see out of the ground yet, neighbors and citizens are anxious to see more. And in the last couple of days, especially when it's been windy, there are concerns from the surrounding neighborhood about the appearance of the site, dust blowing, and lack of progress going vertical at this point, which under the original timeline was supposed to happen at this juncture. So it is my interest to try and build in some accountability measures into what we're talking about here in terms of timelines, and also an ongoing discussion about maintaining the site. If it's unlikely to have much more construction this year, I do think we need to maintain that site and do a much better job than what we're seeing right now, which has a lot of holes and a lot of dust and some fencing issues. There was an office chair in the middle of the site a few days ago. We can't have that. So I guess where I want to start is, I want to start by saying no one wants to see this happen more than me. And I do appreciate the new vision and what we're doing here. And I do think the increase in entitlements is largely because of the new parking plan and the fact the city will own those parking structures now. So that increase in entitlement is largely funding that public infrastructure that the city will own. And the TIF amount has gone up somewhat because the private investment is going up from about $560 million to $860 million. So that's a positive too. I mean, that's a major reinvestment in our city, should this all come to fruition as we believe it will and as we're envisioning it will. So I know we're just talking about the plan here, the redevelopment plan, the much more substantive document that would address all these things comes back to the city council probably in a couple months, the redevelopment agreement. Mm-hmm. And it'd be my wish and desire at that point to build into that agreement some of these things we're talking about in terms of timeframes, phasing, some accountability, and some commitments in terms of maintaining the site in the meantime. Do you want to have an opportunity to comment on those things?
Sure. About the site maintenance, so we will coordinate with you in your office to get specifics on site maintenance and what you're interested in having done. We certainly will address that promptly, and we'll work with KJ, the landowner, to do so, make that happen right away. We don't disagree, and we'll work to accommodate that. In terms of accountability, you know, so Woodbury Corporation's in the business of moving forward quickly. We're not in the business of land banking, and so that's another way of saying we're highly motivated once we have our approvals and we are fully contracted to go forward as quickly as possible. So, you know, getting our investment in the ground and coming out of the ground and operational cash flowing is number one goal for us. And so we anticipate moving quickly to do that. We think phase one, there's enough critical mass with phase one that we think that it will, you know, help create some inertia for the rest of the development to happen quickly. So we have enough of the different uses happening at the same time. We intend for all of phase one to come out at the same time. So there's effectively 3 blocks in phase one that would all come out, be built at the same time, which also helps mitigate some of the site constraints and site issues. Now, it's going to take some time to build phase one, but it's all going to happen at the same time. And then we also believe, and our vision is the way that we've structured how the phasing comes out, we're keeping some of the more prime real estate to happen in the future. But we have kind of the center of the development, which we call Block E, is kind of the heart of the development. We have a entertainment use to the west, and then to the north of that is kind of our multifamily project. And our vision is for all of that really to happen at once. And once all of that's online, we'll have enough critical mass that we think that the subsequent projects in areas south and northeast and northwest of Crossroads will happen in a relatively short order. So that's our vision, that's our thinking. Woodbury is a big believer in mixed use. In fact, we really don't believe in doing developments that aren't really mixed use. We don't, gone are the days of office parks or just, traditional malls. And so this is really to try to get all the various lifestyle uses in one spot at one place. And we've got multiple examples across the country where we've tested this and it's proven. And so we're just bringing some of that institutional knowledge and some of that historical knowledge to Omaha. So we appreciate your support. It has been, Crossroads has been, it's a complicated project. It's taken a long time, and I commend KJ, the landowners and horizontal development companies, all the work they've done to get Crossroads to where it's at today. It's a lot of work, you guys, and it's not the sexy stuff, the pretty pictures. It's all the hard stuff, the horizontal infrastructure, the dry utilities, the wet utilities, the grid. There's a lot of thought that went into that. They've done a great job, and what they've done helps the work that we're about to embark on go faster. So that's how I think we have to look at it. We can't correct what's happened in the time it's taken. But what we can do is, push forward, and we're motivated to go forward and come out of the ground as quickly as possible.
Thank you. And can you just show on the map there, you want to just outline it a little bit when we talk about phase one, what exactly portion of the site you're talking about?
You
there?
bet. So we got really scientific on our block labeling. So it's A, B, C, D, E, F. So really what we're talking about is this center here and this northern block. And so this is the existing garage, Target, of course, and then a vacant lot here, and then this is Dodge Street, of course. So this represents about a third of the site here. And the intention is really strategic. We believe that we need to have enough, like I mentioned before, enough critical mass to attract the type of retail tenants that we're after. We're working on an entertainment use that would become an anchor to the site. And then, having people live on the site is also really important. So that's our vision. That's how we've kind of approached it. We think the property on Dodge Street, of course, will come along very quickly. We think the property next to Target is another terrific site. And President Festerson, you're exactly right. That garage it's got a way better use than as a parking garage today. And we really believe that. In fact, our market analysis and our study of the site really shows that 72nd and Cass is really not all that different than 72nd and Dodge. In many ways, it's very similar. So we just think there's a better use for that piece of property. The garage when it was designed and built 30 years ago, it worked well for a mall, for an indoor mall. And today, we just think there's a higher and better use.
Okay. So. And in that first phase, or even what we call phase one or phase 1A, is residential, senior living, the lifestyle center you're talking about there, and sort of that public space that we saw the picture of, and the new entertainment prospect, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
And if all goes well with this and with the redevelopment agreement, construction of those things all at the same time, 2025, 2027 desired opening?
That's the intention, yeah. I mean, we have some headwinds with kind of the larger macroeconomics. I mean, right now, rates are extremely difficult for guys like us. So we're working through that. And we're, that's the intention, though, is we want to be going as quickly as possible.
And I realize there's lots of different factors, especially with a redevelopment site this large, when we talk about phase 2 and phase 3 and when that could occur. But I am interested in talking to you further when we talk about the redevelopment agreement about this 2025 to 2027 period and how we can build some assurances around that. And I know you have your upcoming annual retail convention.
That's right.
In which you intend to have a major presence.
Yeah, so ICSC is the International Conference for Shopping Centers. It's every year. It's in Las Vegas. And so Woodbury has a booth there where we present. We do a lot of business there, securing retail. You know, Woodbury's real estate portfolio, the retail part of it is very healthy. I don't remember if you have 93% occupancy, which is basically no vacancy from a retail standpoint. So we're really excited about that. We think we'll have a great showing at ICSC. We've been working really hard with our partners Lockwood to help on the retail piece at ICSC. And, you know, it's a critical part to helping make this thing go.
Mm-hmm. With the intent on having new to market type opportunities.
Yeah, that's
still.
right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. That's what I want to further engage you on as we talk about this project and as we talk about the redevelopment agreement, those timeframes, and then also definitely maintenance of the site. And I know we'll do that.
Sure, you bet.
Thank you. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
First, I know you can't make the motion, but I'm sure you would be the first to want to do so. But so in your honor, I will make the motion to approve.
Thank you. I'll second.
All right, there you go. And secondly, just a couple things. One, I will disagree with you on one thing, Pete. I think, I know you said that no one wants to see this happen more than you, but I'll put myself right up there next to you, and I'm sure others on the council will too. But I think we all want to see this happen. And I appreciate a couple of the residents, Mr. McGear, I believe is how you say his name, but who've come down to express their frustration. And I understand that frustration, but, and I'm sorry, Josh and Dave and Walker, if you want to sit down so you don't have to stand the whole time, that'd be fine. I understand the frustration that not only the people who live around there or who drive around there, or really, quite frankly, are in the city of Omaha who see that. I think I get it. The frustration is kind of felt on a couple different levels. One, to look at it, but also to see something not happening on what a lot of people think is kind of like, you know, the gathering center of Omaha, Nebraska. And I remember when Frank Krejci and Chip James kind of announced their partnership to start a project here, that's exactly what was said. It was kind of Omaha's meeting place where we'd go to celebrate, and in other times we would go to protest. It is an important part of Omaha's history, and it's an important part of Omaha's future. And I think that's important to state because things like this can't happen overnight. And I understand the frustration, but remember, even before it was in its current condition, it was a vacant mall. And there were a couple of retail, when Frank Krejci bought it and had a couple of retail kind of operations going on in there, it was completely underutilized. And again, that's kind of the heart of Omaha. And to see nothing happening there at that time, and to think that nothing would happen there I think would be devastating for the city. And so, like many projects, it takes time, and it evolves, and different partners come along, and different partnerships are formed, and different visions are conceptualized, and what ends up at the end of the day is completely different than what began. And I think that's what we're seeing here. And I understand the frustration, but I also understand and hope that people can remain not only patient, but optimistic about what can be here. One of the things I was talking with some people earlier today to illustrate that point is in Indianapolis, there is a downtown mall that's called Center, I think it's, hold on, yeah, Circle Center Mall. And Circle Center Mall, from its inception, it's downtown Indianapolis, from its inception to its completion was about 18 years. And that's in the heart of downtown Indianapolis. I use that as an example of, again, it takes time. And again, much like Crossroads here, they went through a number of architects, they went through a number of developers, they went through a number of city administrations. But it's keeping your eye on that end goal that you're all working for, and knowing that things will change, COVID will happen, interest rates are going to go crazy, but to maintain that focus and maintain that drive is what's important here. And when Woodbury came in to be a partner in this, with knowing their work around the country, I think Omaha is blessed at this point to have Woodbury involved. And again, when this started, not when this started, because I'm not even going to talk about when this originally had, Rod Yates was proposing something here, and what that, I can't even remember what that amount of that project was, but then when Lockwood and Crate first presented, it was about a $450 million project. And now we're sitting here talking about basically a $900 million project with more density, less office, more commercial, more entertainment. So again, you see how that project has evolved over time, but also thinking about how that really can be optimized at that location. I think that's where we're at today. Specifically, and Josh said it at the end there, and Pete brought it up too, about 72nd and Cass. I mean, really, by the demolition of that facility, it benefits in two ways. One, it increases the walkability of the site, which has been talked about, where now we can strategically place smaller garages around the site closer to the uses that it will complement. And it opens up the opportunity for development of 72nd and Cass, which the highest and best use at 72nd and Cass is not a garage. So I think again, we talk about that evolution of the project. I think we see that again here happen as we get into the project. Oh, there's a better use for that. And we can not only optimize the use on that corner, but also make the site more walkable by placing the garages, smaller garages, more strategically located across the space. The market ultimately is going to determine when this is built out. I think we all look at Exarban and we think what a successful development that's been. And do you know Exarban's not completely built out yet? So again, that goes back to the part about being patient. But I think, again, with the plan that Woodbury has and the phasing of it, certainly seems to me to make a lot of sense. The last thing I think I'm going to touch on today is that when we talk about some of these timelines and having accountability and guidelines and commitments, I understand the reason to have that conversation here today. And as Pete pointed out, this is the plan stage. I think that the time we really need to consider those is when we get to the agreement stage. But have those conversations now so that when we get to the agreement stage, we have some of those. But again, I think there needs to be some consideration for flexibility when we get to that point, because again, markets are going to change and the market is going to drive probably what the final product will be. So I'm very happy to be able to sit here and be in support of this. Again, it's, I know it's $861,000 project as it sits on the paper today, but I'm going to call it $900 million. And when we're talking, now I'm going to go up a little more. And now when we're talking about $1 billion project in the center of Omaha, I'm going to figure out a way to make that the best possible outcome for the citizens of Omaha, and I think we're headed in that direction. And I thank Woodbury for their investment and interest in Omaha.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe.
Thank you, Mr. Festerson. I'd like us to walk across the street to the library site. On 72nd and Dodge, right across the street, we have a $158 million library that's currently under construction. Steel's up well along. It's a $158 million private-public partnership. The city has a $20 million investment going into that project. And I'd like to ask Jennifer Taylor to come up, if you would, and just explain how that financing mechanism works and why is it that the library project is a part of this Crossroads agreement?
Jennifer Taylor, City Law Department. Thank you very much, Councilman Rowe. I'll answer your question by pointing out a couple of different things. First and foremost, when the city invests in various projects in its community, we oftentimes do so under the guise of the Community Development Law, which is a section of Nebraska state statutes that allow us to invest in various different areas of our community. The Community Development Law allows us to invest in 3 different ways. We can finance projects through the use of tax increment financing, which we talk about a lot here. We can invest in projects through the use of occupation tax financing in enhanced employment areas. And we can invest in projects through the use of redevelopment bonds. When the city issues redevelopment bonds, those bonds are paid for with a specific small portion of the city's levy. That levy and those bonds are authorized under the Community Development Law. Those bonds can be used, and the proceeds from those bonds can only be used in community development areas pursuant to a redevelopment plan. So both sites, the Crossroads site and the library site, are within community redevelopment areas. The Crossroads project is subject to an active and approved redevelopment plan. The library site is not. So in order to allow the city to issue redevelopment bonds and invest those proceeds in the library site, as we have agreed to do to the tune of $20 million, we need to have an approved redevelopment project plan for that site. It makes sense to actually include the library site with the Crossroads amendment because, 1, the 2 projects are immediately adjacent to each other. They're across the street. 2, they're both at 72nd and Dodge, and I think both the library and the Crossroads development teams see a lot of cross-use between the 2 projects. So I think everyone envisions you can go to the library and enjoy that. You can go across the street and enjoy the amenities of Crossroads and vice versa. So it makes sense to bring those 2 projects together within the same redevelopment plan. I would also remind the council that redevelopment plans are always put forth by the city. This is the city's development plan for its community and specifically for this corner. So to bring these 2 things together makes sense from a city purpose. It allows us to participate and invest in both projects. In the Crossroads projects, the use of tax increment financing, occupation tax financing in enhanced employment area, and redevelopment bonds. So actually, in this plan, we're using all 3 financing sources that the Community Development Law allows us to use underneath this one plan. All 3 of those will be utilized here so that the city can invest in both of these projects. However, I cannot invest in the library project without an approved project plan.
That's a perfect explanation. I'm glad you were here.
Thank you.
I think I just want to make sure there wasn't any confusion that these 2 projects are in some way connected financially or in ownership. It's 2 different projects. It's just we need to include it in the part of the plan. And because of the nexus, I mean, it's right across the street, it makes a lot of sense to put that together. And now we have a mechanism to use the proceeds of the bonds to pay some bills that are going to be coming due.
Correct. They are 2 separate projects. They are connected because the city sees them both as great investments in this one very key corner, but they are separate projects that we are separately investing in.
Great, thank you.
Thanks for fleshing that out. I think that was important too. And I would also say it's important that we keep in mind the pedestrian connection here to the library and to the Crossroads site and making that safe for people so we do have that symbiosis that could occur. Ms. Melton, you're recognized.
Oh, thank you. And I'm going to ask Ms. Hadley if you could come back up. Sorry, I don't think you probably weren't expecting that, but Ms. Taylor talks about investment, and we all sit up here and know it because we talk about how tax increment financing works. However, just this morning on the radio, I heard somebody go, "This is my taxpayer money paying for Crossroads." Currently, they're paying property taxes on this property. I don't know how much, but I'm assuming it's quite a bit in property taxes. Once if this never gets redeveloped, it just basically, it could even go down. Without any tax increment financing, that keeps it from never going down. It'll only go up. But we actually could lose money, property tax money on this if we don't do something or don't have development on this land. Is that correct?
Correct. Bridget Hadley, City Planning, correct. If we don't participate through public-private partnership with this tool to encourage this redevelopment, then the developers without this tool would not be able to redevelop the site to the tune that they're talking about. The site could stay as it is. And over time, that could cause deterioration in the valuation. So yes.
And
that,
it could
that
actually
could
even,
happen.
It could actually even hurt the values of the properties of the people that live around
Surrounding
there.
it,
I think
correct.
I mean, one of the residents came up, if this just stays
that could happen.
This dirt land, I think it could start to affect their property taxes. Now, the other thing I heard is, well, you're giving my tax money to developers. Are we giving any money away?
The city of Omaha is not giving any money away. As I have said in the past, I know we use the term financing, that's in the word tax increment financing, but it is the developers who have to come to the city with their proposal of what they're going to redevelop with their, you've heard the term capital stack, their sources, equity, traditional financing, all the tools that they can pull together to help finance the project, in this case, almost a $900 million project. They have to put that together and actually start construction before new tax revenue can be generated. And it's only through that new tax revenue that they do pay into the county treasurer that is then rebated back to them. Just that little portion, the new, rebated back to them to help pay back the debt that they incurred to construct that project. So
Right.
the
So
city is not giving away any of its money.
Right. In this case, the owners are taking out, we say it's roughly $105 million in tax increment financing if we approve this today. The owners have to go take out a loan, a private loan from a private banking institution for $105 million.
If I could correct, $101,700,000.
$101,700,000.
Which includes capitalized interest. Yeah.
Sorry, okay. So, but they go take that out. It is not backed by the taxpayers.
Not.
If the project they don't fulfill the project, or somehow this doesn't fulfill, they owe the bank for that loan.
Correct. The city is not a partner in the debt, any of the debt that the project owners incur, the bank financing that they
Right.
come to.
My property taxes have not a penny
Your property
is
taxes,
going towards the tax increment
correct.
financing.
Even the adjacent property owners, their taxes are not involved.
And I always want to be clear, because that's what I hear. My tax dollars are going into this.
Nope.
They're not.
No.
And so it's not that there's $101 million that we could be spending on streets. There is no $100 million. That's a loan they're taking out from one of their banks.
Right.
Okay. And so knowing that, the developers have an incentive too then to make sure the project happens and moves forward, because they've already financed. And in this particular project, I know you may not know the specifics, but there's been a lot of work. Everybody says nothing's been done, but the infrastructure, all the utilities that go underground that we can't see, that a lot of that, they use the tax increment financing money for the utilities. And there was a lot of road work that was done on Dodge Street and Cass Street that's already been completed. So.
Well, no tax, as far as I understand and know, no tax TIF money has been generated quite yet.
None.
Or
at
given
this
to them.
point,
So
none has
they've
been
had to
generated.
come out of pocket, and they are still, and that's a great point. I mean, Lockwood can talk to it the most. They are out that money, but they had to expend those dollars to get this site redeveloped to the point where it can now have above-ground redevelopment in addition to the garages, so.
Well, that's a good
That's
point.
a risk. The developers are the ones who are at risk, not the city, no, not the government.
Yet we reap the benefits, so.
Absolutely,
At the end.
public does.
But at this point, I know, there's been millions of dollars already spent on that.
Yes.
Property. I don't want to speculate, it's not really my area, but we've watched the street projects, and it's benefited the citizens. These are. this
Putting in
was
the grid.
road projects
Mhm.
on Dodge, road projects on Cass.
Yes.
That all of us use, and that has been paid for, not by the city, but has been paid for by the developer.
Right.
And currently, I guess I wasn't aware that there'd been, I was assuming there was TIF money being used for that, because those are projects that qualify for
Yeah.
tax increment financing.
They do qualify, but this project has a lot of different funding mechanisms involved.
Okay, well, I think that's a good point already, that they've already made that investment in the area. So anyway, I thank you for answering the question. I know I've asked you the same question probably 20 times over the last couple of years, but for some reason, not everybody hears it. So I like to have you come back up and re-explain TIF every couple months, so.
I'll be back next
And
week.
your website is fabulous. The planning website for tax increment financing is amazing, and I know you're always open and you welcome calls, and you will take as much time as anyone wants to explain it to them so that they can understand it. So we're very fortunate to have you in charge of of these projects. So thank you.
Thank you. I just will say, if I misspoke on any of the numbers, for the development team or anyone else to correct me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bigley.
Thanks, Mr. President. My good friend, Councilmember Rowe, mentioned, Jennifer mentioned, she answered a lot of the questions regarding the separation of the library in this project. And I know when so Crossroads is on the north side, that's Council Festerson, Festerson's district. And the library that Councilmember Rowe mentioned, he's excited about libraries not only there, but also, I think, one on 204th and F he's pretty excited about. So when you look at this project at the Crossroads, and Council President Festerson mentioned the frustration from the past that we've dealt with Crossroads, that there's nothing going vertical. And if you look at the library site there, it is going vertical, and it's exciting to see the transformation of that southwest part of 72nd Dodge. And as we go back to the Crossroads, that the rebooting or the changing of the guard that is going on now, meeting Mr. Berger and his team, I got all the confidence in the world in this project that'll be the footprint of 72nd Dodge Street. I know a few of us went last month and signed the beam for the new library that HCR hosted, and that's going to be great there. And Council President Festerson talked about the walkability connecting the north side of Dodge, the library, and I'll go one step further even to one of our constituents in Elmwood is here. Also the walkability from people in the Elmwood Neighborhood Association on the southeast side, where I'm going to go to a neighborhood meeting tonight. It's important that all those connections are made with these projects. I know Public Works and others have been working on this, but in respect to the Crossroads, Woodbury taking over, and the great things were, all the things that the neighbors to the north of the Crossroads, that Council President Festerson has talked to those folks and dealt with this frustration. I know going forward, it's going to be a project where we start seeing the infrastructure that OPPD and others have put in along Dodge and Cass. And as we look forward to this site and the rebranding, that there's going to be more housing available, and they change, as was spelled out earlier, the retail, the hotel, the entertainment, they're changing how that's looking in the updates. So I am going to be supporting this and glad to do it today, because it is a transformational location in our city, as was mentioned, and connecting the library to the people in the Elmwood Park Neighborhood Association and others in the city. The Orbit line goes through there. When we think big in Omaha, 72nd Dodge and this redevelopment is part of it, and I'm glad to support it today. Thanks, Mr. President.
Thank you. There's no further lights. There was a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
Consent agenda. Any member of the city council may cause any item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be taken up by the city council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed unless otherwise provided by the city council rules of order.
The public hearings on agenda items 24 through 26 were held on April 16th. I don't see any further lights. Is there a motion?
Move the approval.
Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0.
The public hearings on agenda items 27 through 31 are today. If you wish to address the city council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by name, address, and who you represent, and if you are a proponent or an opponent. These are items 27 through 31.
You know, Mr. President, I have come to the conclusion, 1981, you was in college, right? I had to believe that. Number 31. Anyway, 1981,
Donnie, which item are you speaking to?
let me do the address thing first.
Okay.
Okay. Donnie R. Johnson, the Johnson Equestrian Foundation, and North Hall Concerned Citizen Foundation. And item number 31. But anyway, in
So
1981,
it's got to be about police motorcycles and the police department, right?
yeah, but at the University of Nebraska of Omaha, we're allowed to use subjects to prove a point. And that was,
No, you got to be on topic to this point, number 31.
well, can I ask you a question, sir?
No, you can't.
Well, anyway, back to 1981, when I was in Nigeria, Enron,
All right,
and
Donnie,
MUD.
you're off topic.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other testifiers on these items? Public hearings are closed.
Move the approval.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Item 32, a resolution to approve the appointment of Bridget Baumgardner to the Omaha Municipal Land Bank.
The public hearing and vote on number 32 is today. Proponents, please. And I'll remind council members on these next 4 items, this is different than most appointments in that it requires 5 votes to approve these. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Leslie Smith. I am representing Omaha Municipal Land Bank, address 1905 Harney Suite 224, Omaha, Nebraska 68102.
Thank you.
I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Ms. Johnson, you're recognized.
This information is for the record. Bridget Baumgardner is not present today.
Bridget was here earlier. She had a scheduled appointment she took 1 hour and it went over. But she sends her regards. She's very passionate about Omaha. She's also been an ambassador, which is a program that the Land Bank has administered to prepare people to become familiar with the Land Bank and be prepared to serve as a board. She's happy to answer any additional questions afterwards.
Thank you, Leslie. I understand your position, but please respectfully understand mine. The city of Omaha has not done a very good job at being diversified on these committee appointments. And I have been advocating for a different outlook for that. I've also instructed staff to make a invitation for individuals to come so that I would have the opportunity to ask questions to make a informed decision and do due diligence, which I'm required to do as a city council representative when I make a decision. When a representative is not able to come and give me that opportunity, then that puts me at a position where I feel compelled to vote no. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Begley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. I had the opportunities, I called Ms. Baumgartner and spoke to her last week. I also had a constituent reach out to me that was interested in this position several weeks ago, which I referred to the mayor. The mayor made her selection in Ms. Baumgartner. It wasn't the one I gave her, but the mayor's entitled to pick who she wanted, and after having the phone conversation with Bridget, I am comfortable making a motion to support her today. I also had another email from a constituent that doesn't live in my district, but was advocating for a lady that lives in my district that I was glad to make a recommendation on behalf of her as well. And she politely said it was not within her time that she could commit to the land bank. So with the one that I did refer, the one that declined the nomination for her going to the mayor, I am again with Bridget. After having that conversation with her, I'm glad to support her nomination today. Thank you.
Motion and a second to approve. Ms. Melton.
Oh, yes, I just wanted to note that I exchanged emails with her. She was very prompt in exchanging emails. I saw her phone number. She said she was willing to speak at any time. So I'm always perfectly comfortable with contacting people ahead of the meeting, and I appreciated her willingness to meet or do whatever at any time before or after her appointment. So please let her know that I appreciated her prompt response to my email as well, and I support the appointment.
Thank you. No further lights. Roll call.
Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-1. Item 33, a resolution to approve the appointment of Itzel Lopez to the Omaha Municipal Land Bank.
Public hearing and vote on number 33 is today. Proponents, please.
Hi, Leslie Smith, Omaha Municipal Land Bank, 1905 Harney 224. I am here in support of Itzel Lopez. I'm going to also say that she was also here and stayed for 2 hours and had to leave for a prior appointment, so I do apologize for that.
Thank you. Other proponents to number 33? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Hug.
I am familiar with this candidate, Ms. Lopez. She's very active in the community, and I think she'd be a tremendous asset on the land bank.
Is that a motion?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve. No further lights. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-1. Item 34, a resolution to approve the appointment of Susan Routh to the Omaha Municipal Land Bank.
Public hearing and vote on number 34 is today. Proponents, please.
Leslie Smith, Omaha Municipal Land Bank, 1905 Harney, Suite 224. I am here in support of Susan Roth appointment to the board. I'm
Thank
here
you.
to answer any questions.
Any other proponents to number 34? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Harding, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. I talked to Susan, reached out to her, and she was very responsive, much like Bridget Baumgartner was, and talked to her about this appointment and her willingness to serve even in the non-voting position. Went over the resume with her, and I think she'd be a more than qualified candidate for this, so I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to approve. Ms. Melton.
Yes, and I should have mentioned, I did exchange emails with both Itzel before and with Susan, and I believe Itzel was actually in our council office, I believe, last week. She was willing to come around and meet with anybody. I know Susan said the same. She exchanged emails, so I just wanted that to be on the record that all of these appointments were everyone was open, available, and very responsive. So thank you. I'll be supporting this as well.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to reiterate my position, and this situation just puts me in a untenable situation over and over again. It's not about the availability of someone. It's about being able to come in front of this city council and answer questions on the record as far as I'm concerned and as far as the needs of the constituents that I serve is concerned. And so I will again take that stance of saying no.
Okay, thank you. There's a motion and a second to approve. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-1. Item 35, a resolution to approve the appointment of Mike Reedman to the Omaha Municipal Land Bank.
Public hearing and vote on number 35 is today. Proponents, please.
Hi, Leslie Smith, representing Omaha Municipal Land Bank, 1905 Harney Street, 224. I am here to answer any questions. Mike is currently serving in a voting capacity. He is stepping aside to a non-voting capacity to allow for new members to eventually join the board and train them on the way out. He's a founding member, so before he steps away, he's been willing to help train the new oncoming board members. So I'm here to answer any additional questions that you may have.
Thank you. Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Harding.
Thank you, Mr. President. I've talked to Mike numerous times about his position on the land bank and his active engagement with the Omaha Area Board of Realtors. He's eminently qualified to continue to serve in this position, but as Ms. Smith pointed out, I think he's making way for someone else to learn about and be active and take a role in the land bank. And I admire him for taking that step aside so that he can continue to mentor as a non-voting member, but also open up that opportunity for someone else to serve in that volunteer role. So I will be supportive of Mr. Reedman's appointment.
Thank you. Ms. Melton.
Yeah, and I'll be making a motion to approve his appointment. I'll move to approve it. But I really wanted to just say publicly, I wanted to state my appreciation to Mr. Reedman for the amount of time that he has spent and dedicated to the land bank, and which has benefited our entire city. I'm very appreciative that he took that appointment many years ago to represent District 7 on the land bank. But this just goes to show what a great guy he is as well, that he's going to continue to try and mentor other people. I mean, what a great example he is to others. And so I appreciate all his time. I found absolutely no need for him to come down. He's been on the land bank for so many years, and he is always available, makes himself available for any questions. And in fact, is just going from he's already on the land bank. He's going from a voting member to a non-voting member. So a no vote today for him would just leave him as a voting member. So I look forward to continuing to work with him, and please extend our appreciation for all the years of work he's done for the land bank.
Thank you. No further lights. There's a motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton.
Yes.
Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 6-1. Item 36, an ordinance vacating the east-west alley from 11th Street to 12th Street between Izzard Street and Nicholas Street. Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing on number 36 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon. Jay Klein, 10404 Essex Court, representing the applicant White Lotus Group.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 37, an ordinance to approve a 5-year agreement with U.S. Venture, Inc. for the sale of biogas by the Papillion Creek Water Resource Recovery Facility.
Public hearing on number 37 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon. Jim Tyler, City of Omaha Public Works. Bob Stubbe did have to step out, so I'll be around for the rest of the meeting if there's any questions after this item. I'd also like to take the opportunity, and if Bob was here, he wouldn't be happy with me saying this. He is receiving this Thursday from the American ACEC Pillars of the Community Award for his close to 5 decades of service as a professional engineer for the City of Omaha. That includes almost close to 2 decades as the Public Works Director and close to 3 decades for Metropolitan Utilities District.
Well, thanks. Thanks for sharing. We'll have to embarrass him the next time he's
Yes.
here.
So this project, and I'm going to use some graphics here to help illustrate what we're talking about. So this project is for the monetization of our biogas that we produce at our Papillion Creek wastewater treatment plant. And besides myself, I have Dave Neubauer, who was working with U.S. Ventures, who our contract is with, and Jake Hansen, our project manager, and just Jake's been managing capital projects for the city for a number of years, and he's kind of behind the scenes, helps get millions of dollars worth of work done, so I wanted to give him a little bit of a thank you for all the work he's done on this project. This is a really big deal for the city. This is going to help the City of Omaha capitalize on natural gas that we produce at our Papillion Creek Water Resource Recovery Facility. We've been making use of this natural gas as a resource for many years. We've used that gas in the past to help offset the need to purchase gas and electricity that operates the treatment plant. We have made, and we are in the process of making investments at the facility that will produce and capture more gas. And this contract with U.S. Venture will allow us to work with a partner that will help us best capitalize and monetize on that gas production. And just to let you know in context, we're anticipating revenues of over $5 million annually from this investment, and that's on the low end. We could see revenues on the high end of close to 9 or 10 million, depending on the gas markets and how they materialize in the future. And just to illustrate a little bit of what's going on down there, you can see on the screen, this here is the area of work that's happening. Our biogas conditioning building, that's where we installed equipment that's going to clean the gas that allows us to sell it to the pipeline. The cogeneration building is where we're adding capacity to convert that gas to energy. The thermophilic digesters. The digesters, that's where we produce the gas. It's the stomach of the treatment plant. The treatment plant's very much like the human body. The digesters are like our stomach. That's where we take care of the solid material. That's where the gas is produced. The liquid stream that comes through these trickling filters.
This is the stomach of the stomach.
The liquid stream is like our body's kidneys, and it cleans and filters the liquids that come out of the treatment plant and discharges it safely into the environment. And I'd like to talk about those things that we do there. Just also to put into perspective a little bit, and this isn't something we talk about a lot, this is a graphic from the city's budget.
Hey, Jim,
Yep.
could you just move the microphone over because I think it's not picking you up? There you go.
Sure, sorry about that. This is a graphic from the 2024 budget. And so if you see as a kind of a revenue source for the city's budget, we are in line with property tax and sales tax of about 13% of the city's budget. We're a big wastewater utility with $220 million of revenue annually. This is going to be a great source of revenue to help support that overall revenue that we bring in to operate, maintain, and continue to build on that treatment plant and collection system to serve the metro area. We did go through I'll go back this way. We did go through a competitive selection process to select U.S. Ventures for this contract. Our evaluation team included members of the finance and law departments, and we worked closely with our engineering consultant, HDR, in the development of this. They've been working with other communities who have gone through this effort prior to us. Our finance and law departments were also involved in negotiations of the contract terms. This is a 5-year contract with an option for a one-time 5-year renewal. Really, these decisions that we had to make on this effort were less engineering and more financial, and that's why we heavily involved our city finance department and Director Curtis in the decisions we made on how to move forward with this contract. And like I said, the revenues will help pay for future operations, maintenance, and capital expenditures we make for our wastewater collection and treatment system. I'm now going to go ahead and step aside, and I'm going to let Dave Neubauer make a few statements of how this all works and how it's going to benefit the city and our ability to take advantage of natural gas as a valuable commodity in the energy markets. And I'm available myself for any additional questions.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Dave Neubauer. My firm is N1 Energy, and I'm here representing U.S. Venture, Inc., who will be the counterparty to the city on this agreement. I'm also an Omaha citizen, 6729 Davenport Street. So essentially, the city has been capturing methane off of these digesters and using that energy. And I think, as we all know, methane is the worst greenhouse gas there is. It's 50 times more lethal than CO2 for the atmosphere. And so this project, where the city is capturing this biogas, it's allowing the city to participate in the United States Environmental Protection Agency's Renewable Fuel Standard Program. And so that program requires that large refiners in the U.S. demonstrate lower emissions through the use of lower emission fuels and lower tailpipe emissions. And so effectively, through the regulatory process, we're able to match up with large refiners and also utilities that need renewable natural gas so that they can meet their requirements, and they're going to effectively, they pay for the currency of that is our environmental credits, which are typically called RIN credits. And those credits trade in the marketplace. It's a very onerous compliance process for large refiners, large utilities, and also for biogas producers who capture that. The EPA is very stringent on the requirements in order to generate and monetize these types of credits. So the City of Omaha's team has worked very hard to satisfy all the requirements to submit this project to the EPA for its approval. And that's on track to be submitted here in the next few weeks. And then once that project's approved, then that gas, when it's cleaned up, goes into, in this case, is connected with the Black Hills Energy System. They'll accept that gas, and that gas physically will be consumed in this area, but it will be routed to other locations, effectively to go into transportation vehicles as compressed natural gas. So it's a pretty complicated process, but it also encourages cities, municipalities to capture that methane, to clean up that methane, and it encourages refiners to build dispensing stations that use compressed natural gas. So it's kind of a push and a pull program by the EPA. And the supply and demand of those credits is a function of how much gas gets captured in the marketplace versus how much the EPA is requiring. And their requirements change, every year. So as Jim had described, this translates into a very good economic benefit to the city, where they can capture and monetize those environmental attributes and then pass that value back to the city. And in today's market value, that would be somewhere between $6 and $10 million annually for the city. Once the registration is approved And that process, there's kind of a follow-on approval process once the facility is approved, and then this monetization has another approval process. But the city could be accruing value as soon as here in the next few weeks, and those dollars would probably, the timeline of those cash flows would be probably Q3 of this year. So I think I'll finish with that unless someone has any questions. U.S. Venture as a counterparty is a private entity. They're not publicly traded, but they are a creditworthy energy company that's been in business since the 1950s. It started with four brothers that were gasoline jobbers. And fast forward 70 years, they're one of the largest renewable energy marketers and traders in North America.
Great.
So I think with that, I'll stop. And if there's any other clarifying questions, be happy to answer them.
Thank you. Any other proponents today?
I ain't gonna screw up like they did on Concord here at the City Council. Donnie R. Johnson, the Johnson Equestrian Foundation, and Northam Hall Concerned Citizen Foundation. I would like Mrs. Councilman of my district, Mrs. Johnson, to continue working with these gentlemen because we had the same program with Enron, MUD in 1981, but Enron pulled out and I lost money. So we would like to piggyback off the same program.
Okay.
But I left Nigeria in the heat of a war.
Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. I'll just thank Public Works for that presentation. The Public Works Committee, after hearing about it, felt it was an important thing to highlight today, even though it's just public hearing. And it being the week of Earth Day, I think a very important message too. This is one of those projects that just makes total sense. It's addressing wastewater and energy and emissions while producing revenue for the city. So I want to commend the department for pursuing it. And it's exactly the type of project that we should be including in our climate action plan going forward as a city as well. Thanks for being here.
Item 38, an ordinance to amend Section 23-177 of the Omaha Municipal Code by adding the employment classification for sports complex manager. Personnel Board recommends approval.
The public hearing on number 38 is today. Proponents, please.
Chelsea Ship, Human Resources Department, just here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents?
Dan Cedar, Parks and Recreation, here to answer any questions.
Other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 39, an ordinance to approve the Omaha Downtown Improvement District Association 2024-2025 budget and work plan, and to levy a special tax and assessment on all lots and pieces of real estate within the BID.
Public hearing on number 39 is today. Proponents, please.
Holly Barrett, Omaha Downtown Improvement District, 1620 Dodge Street, Suite 140, Omaha, Nebraska. Just here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 40, an ordinance to accept the bids and to approve agreements to provide homeless encampment cleanup.
Public hearing on number 40 is today. Proponents, please.
Hello, Tamara Dwyer, City of Omaha Mayor's Office. Just here to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Begley, you're recognized.
Thanks, Mr. President. Tamara, you got a minute, please?
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Hello.
We had a good briefing on this. You gave to most, I think, all the council members and staff, I believe, last week. So just tell me briefly how this this ordinance where we have 4 contractors will go out. So confirm for me how your team, how that will change in respect to, most of us get emails about homeless camps, and your team goes out and compassionately reaches out to them, speaks to them, tries to get them a case manager, and give these men and women direction on where they can go to try to get help. Am I so far so good?
Yeah, you're doing good.
Okay. And then in the past, when your team would get done with what you do, you would direct people, and then if a campsite is cleared, I know it was a process of who do we send to clean it then? Is it parks, weeds and litter, or is it public works? I know in the past it was frustrating for me. There was some camps identified that you and I know where the people were cleared out and moved on, but there was some trash and things that were left behind that people would see. So with this ordinance here today, the 4 contractors, how will that process work now in respect to cleaning up after your team's done?
Yeah, so the process to get up to that point of maybe we might need some additional cleaning would work pretty similar to what it has been. So up into the point of, okay, the area is vacated. Now we got folks to a better place, a safer place, preferably indoors, right? But not always. But we have determined the space to be vacated. The difference with this, it would just mean that those contractors, the scheduling, the assessment of those locations would just go through my role with myself and our street outreach community liaison, Kurt McGee. We would just kind of facilitate the scheduling and the assessment of those locations so it's more efficient, and also so that we don't have so much confusion, right, of whose area is this. It can happen a little bit quicker, and also so that our efforts to end homelessness within my role kind of are coordinated, right, and collaborating with all of the different city departments. I guess in a easier way, smoother process.
Yeah. That's how you conveyed it in the meeting that I was in last week, and it is a more efficient process. I think it's fair to say. Is the hope going forward on this ordinance that the public properties will be cleaned more, I'm hoping quicker and more efficiently, but it doesn't take away from the work your team does to still try to connect the people that are struggling with homelessness to get them connected. But this is just the other end of it. Once you guys are done and deem the site clear, then these contractors will go in and clean the site.
Yeah, our main goal is to try to get folks to connected to services or housing or shelter, whatever that looks like. So the main goal of this isn't to prevent or end encampments necessarily, because we know that we might not be able to do that, but get people connected to services and housing and shelter. That's the goal of this work. So, yeah.
Okay, and I know the 4 that are before us today, I think 3 of them are local. I think one of them is from out of town. Is that?
I believe so,
yeah,
yes.
I was looking through that, and are these SEB members, these businesses?
3 of the 4 are SEB members. Yes, I did confirm that with
Okay. I appreciate
HR.
that confirmation, because that's important. If there's work to be done, I wish it was city crews doing it, but sometimes resources get stretched thin. And my hope is with the mayor's bringing this forward is that it'll be in a process, it'll be more efficient. And again, it doesn't stop the outreach that your team is doing to help people that are homeless.
Yeah, and part of it is also like what we try to do is to limit the amount of cleanup that we have to do on the city, on the city side of things. We're allowing folks to maybe take their things with them or giving them tools to clean up after themselves so we don't have to take on a lot of that cost of cleaning it up. And that has happened for several locations last year, as I shared with you that information when we had met. But yeah, part of that kind of goes into this as well.
And that's the last point. I'm glad you made that, because people that are homeless, sometimes they don't want their things thrown out. And with camps comes waste of belongings or things. If they want to keep them, the people will be allowed to keep them. But if it's to the point where they're in a place where they can't take things, this will help clean that up. So I appreciate your taking the time to just walk us through that.
Yeah,
Thank
no
you.
problem.
Thank you. Mr. Rowe.
I just wanted to take a moment to thank Tamara for the work that you're doing with Kurt and your team. You've got one of the toughest jobs in the city, I'm convinced. Cities all across the country are having difficult conversations about how to work with homeless people. It's a complicated subject. I think even this week, the Supreme Court's actually hearing a case from a city in Oregon that is trying to do, trying to come up with answers. And so the Supreme Court will be weighing in on that small town in Oregon. So just wanted to take a minute to thank you. I know it's tough. Appreciate you coming to work every day.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you. I'm supportive of this next week, too. I think it is important and it is needed. We all have instances where cleanup is warranted on our public property, parks and trails, for example. But I also appreciate the approach you're taking with it, which is the person first and services first. And ultimately, that is the answer, is working with our shelters and rapid rehousing and affordable housing options to address this issue that we're all facing. So I appreciate that, and also want to point out that I also appreciate the effort to include local companies and small emerging businesses in this contract. And in our discussions, depends upon volume and depends upon how you'll manage it with them. It depends upon demand, but we don't anticipate something probably more than $20,000 to get this addressed, and to me, that's well worth it. Thank you.
Thanks.
No further lights. Next item.
Item 41, an ordinance to approve a master development agreement with the Omaha Housing Authority and Brinshore Development, LLC for the housing plan component of the Choice Neighborhoods Implementation Grant Transformation Plan.
Public hearing on number 41 is today. Proponents, please.
Hello, Kelly Johnston Dorsey, Planning Department. The Master Development Agreement before you is needed as part of our CNI South grant. The agreement outlines the roles and responsibilities of the three parties, the City of Omaha, the Omaha Housing Authority, and Brinshore Development. Brinshore was competitively procured in 2021, and they were part of our CNI application that we received. I'm here to answer any other questions you may have.
Thank you. Other proponents?
Good afternoon, members. Joni Poor, Omaha Housing Authority, 1823 Harney Street, here to answer any questions. Our Board of Commissioners has already fully reviewed and approved this agreement as well. So we are obviously fully in support of the passage and approval of this agreement.
Thank you.
Hi, Todd Lieberman, Brinshore Development, 222 West Gregory, number 200, Kansas City, Missouri. Brinshore has been fortunate to work with the City of Omaha, the Omaha Housing Authorities, and place-based nonprofits both in North Omaha and South Omaha. And we're very excited to continue the transformation work and revitalization work with the City of Omaha through this work in South Omaha. Thank you.
Thank you. Other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing's closed. Next item. Thank you.
Item 42, an ordinance to amend various sections of Chapter 10 of the Omaha Municipal Code to increase the contract threshold for participation in the city's contractor provisions from $500,000 to $650,000.
Public hearing on number 42 is today. Proponents, please.
Hi, good afternoon, members of the City Council. Caitlin DeHelius, Director of the Human Rights and Relations Department for the City of Omaha. We are advancing this amendment to the Contractor Provisions Ordinance to clarify, actually update that the ordinance will apply to contracts in excess of $650,000 in construction, and that's to track with the changes to the EEIP ordinance, which is item number 43. We administer them together, and so it makes sense for them to track at a similar amount. The other amendments to this ordinance simply clarify some definitions, again, to track with the EEIP ordinance. And there's one small change, which focuses on that the ordinance applies to city projects regardless of whether the city has a right to use the property or whether it's within the city limits. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any other proponents? Seeing none, any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 43, an ordinance to amend various sections of Chapter 10 of the Omaha Municipal Code to rename the city's Economic Equity and Inclusion Program and clean up language in the provisions.
Public hearing on number 43 is today. Proponents, please.
Good afternoon. Caitlin DeHelius, the Director of the Human Rights and Relations Department. I'm here in support of this ordinance amendments. We are proposing an amendment of the Economic Equity and Inclusion Plan Ordinance to update the amounts that of the dollar value of contracts to which the EEIP program applies to $650,000 for city construction contracts and $150,000 for consulting contracts. That tracks with the rate of inflation from 2015 when EEIP started to now. The $150,000 adjustment also aligns with the professional services process, which was recently changed from $100,000 to $150,000 for their top threshold. The ordinance amendments also clarify the timeline under which the companies need to submit their plans and quarterly reports, clarifies some definitions within the ordinance, and also clarifies penalties for noncompliance. I'm here to answer any questions.
Thank you. And thanks for that overview. I know we talked about it this morning, and I think for those that are watching this particular item or involved in this program, the purpose for the thresholds is just an update, given we first adopted this ordinance in 2015, recognizing inflation and progression of time, and then the penalties for actually noncompliance you just described, which we believe will make the program stronger. Is that a correct assessment?
Yes, the penalties for noncompliance, I think, aren't actually stronger. I wouldn't say they're more incremental because we've added a penalty that a contractor who doesn't comply with the EEIP program updates or quarterly reports, that they are precluded from bidding on city contracts for 6 months the first time that they fail to comply, and then for 1 year the second time. Historically in the ordinance, the consequence was 1 year period. We're also adding in a timeline so that it's super clear when the penalties apply, and that's if a contractor is 30 days behind in submitting their reports. And so when the reports are due, we'll give them a reminder and say, your reports are due. If you don't provide them by this deadline, 30 days out, you'll be precluded from bidding on city contracts for a period of 6 months. So we'd make it super clear, and the timelines are within the ordinance. Everyone's aligned on them.
And should this pass, she'll obviously be having that outreach and those conversations with folks and companies that are in this program?
Absolutely.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other proponents today? Seeing none, any opponents?
Excuse me?
You're an opponent, right, Larry?
Yeah, I surprised you.
Go ahead.
It's Larry Storr, 5015 Lafayette Avenue, Omaha, 68132. I'm a proponent of this because I do think you need to change the language. And the reason I say this, I've spoke about it before. This is the language of Marxism, cultural Marxism. Don't believe me, go read about it with some of your favorite authors and maybe even attend one of these meetings. I'll give you a card for the one this Friday night. Dr. Mark Christian. It's one of them that knows about it. He's a converted Muslim, now a Christian. I've been going for 8 weeks now. He has a class going. But I've studied this before. I also go on Friday mornings to the Hillsdale group that talks about everything American and occasionally socialism, Marxism, totalitarianism, and why we are not a democracy, why most democracies failed. But this program is a part of a national program that is written up by people with a lot of money, and they have 501c3s that maybe get tax exemptions. But it's a Marxist language that is out to change our culture. I don't need to help support diversity, equity, inclusion because the Constitution says we're all equal. If you're not treating me equal, I'm going to tell you. If you're not treating people of other colors equal, I'm going to tell you. I have a little colored blood in me. I have a little Indian blood in me. I don't know what else. But neither did a lot of the colonists because they intermingled with different races and things. Even the royalty over in Europe did. They intermarried different countries, different people in order to get power. But you need to change this and get it out of your language. If you want to keep the program, that's fine. But take the wording out of it and word it from an American constitutional standpoint, not a Marxist, anti-American standpoint. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other opponents today? Seeing none, public hearing is closed.
Non-action items, items 44 through 77 do not require public hearing or city council consideration at this meeting, but will be placed on a future agenda for public hearing and or vote. The reason for non-action is noted after the item on the agenda, as well as the date the item is expected to appear on the agenda for consideration.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion and a second. Roll call.
Melton. Rowe. Bagley. Harding. Hug. Johnson. Mr. President.
Yes.
Motion passed 7-0. Meeting is adjourned at 4:35.